welcome back, guys. I was drawn to make this video today in regards to an issue that I had the other day. And I wouldn't say it was really an issue. It was just a light debate based on a misunderstanding from a point of view that I was trying to communicate. I have a couple of points that I want to talk about. So I got kind of in a debate, and this is a debate that I know that some other people in the community have covered, and they've covered it from their point of view, and so I would just like to cover it in my point of view because I feel that the message that I have been trying to extend to everybody has been misunderstood in a way. The topic I want to cover today is going to be the topic of darkness and elves and light versus dark and what that might mean to one, and definitely what it means to a dark elf, somebody who is, in the best way to describe, born of the dark. We are from the dark side. We tend to see the darker side of things. However, one thing that I want to start out this video with, and I want this to be the baseline of everything. I am not evil. I don't work for evil. I am against evil. I don't think evil has its place in people's lives, even though evil has its place in the world. I don't believe evil should be eradicated, but I don't think that it should be completely equated to dark. So there is this quote by an author, actually. She wrote the series House of Night. Actually, there's two of them, but they call themselves PC Cast. And when I read this book and when I read this series, it gave me a sense of fulfillment and a different point of view and perspective on things that made me realize, because a lot of what this book was about was it was about a lot of like the spirituality in this young vampire woman who was given all of these gifts. She didn't understand why she was working with her goddess, but in the book it became a battle between the dark and the light. And really, honestly, what it was people who thought that they were light fighting against something that they thought was darkness, when in turn, what ended up seeming like it was dark was actually the light, and what seems like it was actually the light was truly the darkness. And it destroyed a lot of things, and it caused a whole bunch of chaos because people thought that they were good versus evil, and that they were expelling the other thing, and that they knew the whole truth. Well, in reality, there is a balance that we all need to take into consideration. We can't fully know good without fully knowing evil. We can't fully see the good without fully seeing the bad. We can't consider one without another. There was kind of a question between polarity and duality. I have a thing that I'm going to pull up that I'm going to read about both of those and how they work together. The author had wrote this quote, and the quote is, "Light does not always equate to good, as dark does not always equate to evil." And I think that's something that a lot of people need to learn. Just because you perceive something as dark does not mean it's evil. And just because you see something and perceive it as light does not mean it's good. Just as there are good Christians, there are bad Christians. Just as there are good pagans, there are bad pagans. Just as there is God, there is the devil. Just as there is life, there is death. There's a good one. So you have life, you have death. Life doesn't always mean a good thing. Death doesn't always mean a bad thing. But life doesn't mean bad, and death doesn't mean good. And that's kind of where I believe that there is a sense of duality and everything, and also, I guess, polarity in a lot of things. I believe in unity. I believe in unity between dark and light, and I believe that there's a lot that people don't understand, and that they believe it on a black and white spectrum. When really, there's white, and then there's black, and then there's gray. There's a lot of in between. And sometimes you can think you're working for the lighter good side, or you're working for the darker bad side, but honestly you're somewhere in the middle in the gray. And I mean, there's darker gray, there's lighter gray, there's a lot. It is a whole scale. You can't just say one is one and one is the other, when there's really, honestly, a spectrum between the two. The main thing that I want to say is everything that you can find in the light, you can find in the dark. So that's kind of where I believe that the duality comes in. You can find healing in light, you can find healing in dark. You can find reflection in light, you can find reflection in dark. You can find your calling in the light just as you can in the dark. Darkness, in my world, the way that I perceive it, and how a lot of the people that I know who define as dark elves see it as a place and a time that can be used for reflections, for things of you and your surroundings. And you can do that in light as well. And if that's the way that you decide to do that, then that's great. But a lot of the times there are, in my opinion, and how I see it, and how it logically makes sense to me, is that there's two worlds. Well, actually, there's three worlds. But let's just sum it up to the two that I want to talk about, because there's the one in between. You have light elves, you have dark elves, and then in the middle there are silver elves, which I'm not going to talk about because I know a silver elf and she wants to start her own YouTube channel, and I'm encouraging her to, and I want her to talk a lot about it from her perspective. But there is above and below, and then somewhere in between. There is left and right, and somewhere in between there is a middle. There's balance. Well, on the side of light, how I equate it is people in the light, they can see everything because lightness is there. It's all around. You can see things and understand things. Logic. That's what your brain is telling you. It is telling you, oh, I can see this, therefore I understand it. And don't take this as I'm saying you can't feel in the light, because you can feel. You have emotions, you have feelings, you are a feeling person. But a lot of it is ran by logic. It is ran by what you can see and what is there. So in the dark, there's not a lot of light. So you can't see a lot of things. You can't perceive them logically. And a lot of people get lost because of that. They get consumed by the darkness because they're scared and they're weak. And they're in a point in their life where they don't understand what's going on. The shadows have taken over. They can't find the hope. They can't see the future beyond what is there. And they're so caught up in their feelings and stuck in their feelings that they just don't know how to move. And they're afraid to take the next step because without seeing what's in front of you, they don't know where they should go, what path they should follow. And that's where people like me come in. I spent a lot of my life in the dark. I'm still in the dark. But the thing is, there is a difference from when I started in the dark versus where I am now. And that was what I was trying to explain, where I got misunderstood. I'm talking from a point of view of darkness. People are talking from a point of view of light. What I'm trying to give is understanding and balance. I don't judge people because I've been through it. I've seen what people are going through and what they've gone through. I want to heal and help people from the point of view of somebody who has been there and is still there. And it is who I am to my very core. I am a sad person. It is my dominant primal emotion. Just as somebody's dominant primal emotion could be anger. My happiness, my love, my everything is defined by sadness. And then there are some people who, even when they're sad, they're happy. Even when they're like love, they're overly happy. When they're mad, they're still defined by their happiness. And to me, I see that as you have sad, happy, angry, love, or lack of emotion. And those are the 5 that I see in most people. And there might be some other ones that I'm not seeing. But I am from sadness. And sadness is in the dark. And because I grew from the dark, it's where my heart lies. That's why I'm a dark elf. But even though I was in the dark for most of my life, even till now, I found something. And that something was the little bit of light that there is in the dark to create the shadow. Now, I can't see light like others can see. My light is internal. The light in the darkness is different. It is bioluminescent. It is glow in the dark. It is very dim, like a campfire. That doesn't make it any less strong. That doesn't make it any less important. I had to find a way to light my own spark, to make sure that I have lightness inside of me that makes me a good person, that helps me make others a good person. Now, just because my light isn't as bright as yours, or just because one's light isn't as bright as yours, or isn't the same shade, or isn't the same color, doesn't make it any less important, any less significant, any less good. My light is good. It will always be good. I don't believe in evil. But there are those who can't find their spark, who are consumed by the darkness. And those are the people I try to help, to guide their way, to share my spark with them and light them up. Whether they become a bright sun or whether they become a dull campfire, there is beauty in both of them. Some people are consumed by their goodness to the point where they only see themselves and their path of righteousness, that they cannot give to anybody else. They can't give to anybody else's values or anything. One thing that I did do is I drew kind of a scale to kind of show you the representation of how I see it in my mind. I believe that everything is within balance, and that's what we need to remember. On this scale, there is a little note underneath, but on this scale, you have light and dark. You have bad light and bad dark. And then you have good dark and good light. And in between is the balance. But if you drift too far this way, it becomes bad. If you drift too far that way, it becomes bad. And the notes that I wrote below it is the dark is not always equal to unconscious actions of bad. Sorry about that. My partner walked in. But the dark is not always equal to your unconscious actions of bad. And light does not always equal unity, peace. However, if that is what you work towards, and if that is what you strive for, or if you are unconsciously unaware of what you're doing, if you're not trying to bring out the goodness and the change in everybody, you can destroy yourself, and that's how you become consumed in the darkness. So that is where the dark can equal unconscious actions of bad, and that is where the light can equal unity, peace. But I still believe if you are conscious and if you have grown in the dark and found your path and found your spark, that form of darkness does not exist for you. And you don't have to make that form of darkness exist for you and be what you define as dark. Darkness itself is needed for the growth in humans. It is also needed for the growth in the Fae and the growth in any other form. Just as a plant cannot germinate and grow from a seed, which is a little capsule of capability, from one acorn can grow a whole orchard of trees. It can give life to thousands of animals. It can be shelter. You still need darkness for that to grow, and even within that orchard there are points of darkness. Just because we're in the night, just because we follow the moon, doesn't make us bad. Because just as there is sun, there is the moon. Just as there is day, there is night. I mean, just because you're in one or the other doesn't make you good or bad. When you're in the darkness can define rest. It can define rebirth. It can be the thing that drives you forward in the world, and it is the thing where some people do most of their growing, most of their work. It is also the place where some people get lost and become monsters and let it consume them. One person I can use for example, because I know it's like a big topic again. Take Hitler, for example. He had wanted to be an artist, and he was denied that. He could have done beautiful things, made beautiful art from his sad life, because he was a very sad person. Well, he turned his sadness into a consuming dark, thinking that he was the light, thinking that he knew what was best for everybody, and had brainwashed hundreds of thousands of people into believing the same thing he did. And then, sorry, I talk a lot with my hands. And then he killed hundreds of thousands of people. Jews, people who weren't like him, people who didn't fit in to his agenda, to his idea of the perfect world. But he did it in the name of light. But it was true darkness. It was evil. But it can disguise itself as light. Just as light, good can disguise itself as darkness. Like, we can't just be so black and white about it. There is the balance, and it is completely gray. In my opinion, darkness and the dark world versus like lightness and the light world, the light world to me is generally dictated by logic. Yes, there's emotions and feelings in it. I'm not dismissing or denying that people who are light workers have lots of love and peace, but they also use their brain. And now I'm not saying that people in the darkness don't use their brain. Yes, they have logical thoughts and they follow, but like I said, they can't see their world. So they have a lot of their emotions inside of them. And that's how they find what they're supposed to do. That's how they find their energies. That's how they find their good and find their spark. The stars in the night sky are a beautiful symbol to the spark that you find in the darkness. All the stars in the night sky were the things that found their spark, even in the endless dark and void that is space. I mean, using space as a metaphor, I love space. Space is beautiful. And although some people, like me, thrive in the darkness, we are able to show other people where their spark can come from and prove to others that they don't have to be consumed and think that they're just all evil and bad. Just as we can thrive here and show others how to thrive here, doesn't mean that people can't be consumed by it, because people can be consumed by it. They have been consumed by it, and it's sad to see. That being said, light elves and dark elves can work towards unity. Unity is literally the greater goal. Peace is the greater goal in life. And I think it always should be. Spiritual unity, logical unity, subconscious unity, unconscious unity. But anyways, so on to the topic of duality and polarity. I pulled up this thing that I thought was actually a really good way of describing it. So, polarity and duality. Polarity is an abstract concept that is often misunderstood, or at least loosely used in a metaphysical context. It is often used interchangeably with duality, which sometimes does not really matter, since polarity is the cause of duality in the first place. But when you get to the point in understanding the principles involved in metaphysics, the relationship between polarity and duality becomes very important. Duality refers to the physical separateness of related yet opposite phenomena or modes of being. Classic examples of duality of the positive and negative electric charges. So you have positive, you have negative. The north and the south poles of a magnet, and the male and female bioforms. So that's duality. Without one, you can't have another. The entire physical world is based on duality. It could not possibly exist without the principle of duality, because there can be no creation without an apparent separateness. Metaphysically, the fundamental substance of the universe out there is a direct expression of the most primary duality of all, that of subject and object, mind and matter. So I do believe in the duality of it all. But as Kimberell was explaining tonight in her video, this might not be posted tonight because I do have to do some clipping because I have 2 separate videos. So this might be posted a little bit later. She was talking about polarity. So it goes on to say, the concept of polarity, on the other hand, is the essence of the underlying unity of these dualistic pairs. So to use it to express separateness is missing its true nature completely. Polarity may be the cause of duality, but understanding it as a single phenomenon which does so actually makes it the unifying principle of dualism. Polarity is the primary reality here. Duality is the experiential result. For example, the single phenomena known as electromagnetic force is the underlying field for both the duality of electric charges and the duality of the magnetic poles. Polarity is represented by an arrow, a vector, which designated a direct essence of created influence, a dynamic quality with the preferred direction, a flow. The decision to give one end of the vector the forward point or not the other is an arbitrary choice, with the possible exception of a few decisions based on aesthetics or intuition. What is important is that the point dictates that the other direction along the vector is different, indicates that one direction along the vector is different than the other direction. This gives rise to the oppositeness of the manifested duality, like the electric charges, and again, to call one charge positive, thus the other negative, is purely a matter of definition. Time is a polarity. It displays a definite preference, direction between 2 opposite modes of being, past and future. We experience the flow of time as an ever-changing present, with the past and the future as opposite fields of the perspective of the present. In this example, we see the excellent clue as how a single phenomena with a built-in 2-sided polarity, time, gives rise to the threefold level of manifestation: past, present, future. In fact, every example we see in the experience in the physical world is not only a cute clue to the nature of higher modes of being, but a direct expression of the highest level of polarity in the universe. So, polarity itself. So, duality is polarity, which is being experienced as separateness. So, duality. You have this, you have this. And so you do have to have duality, but duality is a concept that is based off of polarity. With polarity, you have this now. So instead of having left and right, you have left and right. And so it's one line that just keeps going, rather than one line and another line. So you could have one line go this way, one line go that way. But no, polarity is just one continuous line, whereas duality can go up and it can go sideways. So you have 2 completely separate ones. And then it just goes on to say about the 2-fold law and the 3-fold law and the subject, the polarity and duality and polarity between the 2, how it represents time and everything else in the world. So basically it is used a lot, and I guess in the way that I had used it, I guess I was putting up without understanding fully the terms of polarity, which I understand now, and I was understanding of. Without fully understanding that, you can create a wall and a block between the 2 sides that you're actually trying to unite. So I will switch out my words and change my words of everything as a duality to everything should be working towards being a polarity rather than a duality, because duality is when you start to separate things, and when you start to separate the good from the bad, when really you need the polarity for the good and the bad to work together, for unity to become conscious together. So that is something that I did want to go over and maybe just kind of explain myself a little bit, because I know that I haven't always been the best in communicating what I mean. I hope that I was able to cover some things within this video to kind of help make myself a little bit understood in my form of darkness, because I know people see me talking about darkness and preaching about darkness saying, oh, well, she must have some underlying agenda. She must be trying to split us and create a bad and evil thing, when no, really all I'm saying is you can have healing from the point of darkness. There are shadow workers in this world who help other people move forward using darkness to heal rather than light. I help people heal. I am a healer. I am a dark light worker. I am still a light worker nonetheless. I would never change that for anything. I am still a healer nonetheless. I wouldn't change that for anything. But I would never do it in the name of something bad. I will always do it in the name of something good. But that also being said, I don't think dark is in service to light, and I don't think light is in service to darkness. I see them as two forces that have to work together, never being in service of one or the other. They are constantly a balance, giving and taking, flowing left or right, back and forth, needing each other to be able to exist. Because if dark was in service of light, that would imply that because darkness serves the light, light can exist without darkness, which it simply can't. And just as darkness can't exist without light, because we would have nothing to define it, nothing to go off of, neither is in service of other. However, there are philosophies that explain this as that way, and though they make sense, I just have to disagree, because that's where philosophies come from. They come from minds of people, and there's no way to honestly prove anything, because even through science is a theory all on its own. But I hope that I was able to open the eyes and the mind a little bit to some that might have misunderstood what I had originally meant. The last thing I want to read was actually a comment from my friend the Silver Elf. She is all about balance. And just as I was explaining earlier, you have the light world of the light elves, you have the dark world of the dark elves, and then you have the silver elves. They reside in between in what I would consider a spiritual world. Between the physical world and the dark world, between the up and the down, they are the ones in the middle, who spirits itself, you can see it, even though it's not physically there. In the light world, you can see everything, it's physically there, you can see it, you can perceive it. In the darkness, you don't really know what's there, if anything is there at all, and you really just feel everything. Whereas in between, you can see the spirit, even if you don't physically perceive it. If that makes sense, I hope it does. But I'm just going to read it just because I think it has some good points that I think everybody needs to hear, and she is able to sum up and explain darkness in a better way than I may be able to explain it, because I think darkness is a beautiful thing. You just have to be open to looking at it as such, just as light is a beautiful thing, and you have to be open to looking at it as such. For someone like me, even though I look at the light and I think it's beautiful, sometimes it's too bright for me. And just as somebody who is of light might look at the dark and think, oh, well, it's beautiful, it might be too dark and scary for them. So, but anyways, the way she sums it up is wonderful, so I will read this. Some can't handle a bright shining light. Some prefer the comfort of the dark, which is me, but still need a healing, calming light, which is what I have. I have a calming, healing light. It is more like a campfire. Shadow workers come in handy then. We don't shine a bright light, which a lot of light workers do, and I don't diss on that. A bright light is beautiful, and it's good, and it has its place. And that's not a bad thing for those who need it. And the bright light is a very good thing, but not all need that type of light. Instead, we will hold their hand in the dark so that they know that they are understood and not alone. And that the light we shine is the best way to explain is like the warm glow of a campfire, which I agree with. I have a warm glow of a campfire radiating from within me. It doesn't remove the darkness like the sun does in the daytime, but it brings a warm glow for those to gather around. Some of us prefer the warm glow in the night or the beams of the moon rather than the brightness of the sun or a super bright light. This white light can blind us, and it confuses us and even feels alien to us. We can be ascended ones, and yet we can still stay in the darkness. For in the dark, we can find our strength. In the dark, we can learn to heal and feel better rather than to just see. There are light workers who are needed, but shadow workers are also there to bring balance. For one cannot have night without day. We need both the sun and the moon to survive. Both are very beautiful things. Many, when they think of darkness, they think of evil, negative, ugly monsters under the bed. And yes, that is a very prominent type of darkness. Not good. It is a very prominent type of darkness. Sorry. Not a good type of darkness. It is a very prominent type of darkness. That is the deep, negative darkness where lost souls can seem to be found. But then there is the darkness that we are found at, including me. It's a beautiful place where things glow in the dark, the fires can warm us, we sing songs of love and war all at once, but we are very peaceful and at one with ourselves. We can also have days where we are a complete mess, and this is where we seem to be unhappy and without joy, but that is very far from the truth. We are happy and we have joy, but when we have a bad day or week, it can seem as if all hope is lost for us, but we are still far from unhappy. We just have stress, and topped off with some of us having mental issues like PTSD or anxiety on a bad level, etc., etc. Light workers also have this, yet this is not what she said, but light workers also have this. They can have mental issues, they can have bad days, but because they are from the light, they can logically, a lot of the times, work themselves out of it. I'm not saying they always can, but light workers themselves who are purely of light, they can. When they've come to their arrived consciousness in the light, they can. If you're still arriving there, then you will still find yourself between the dark and the light. But for me, the light is too bright, so I do my healing in the dark. And I still accept the light. I have my own light. I shine bright through my own. I glow. We accept those days. We do. We let them through and let them go, and then we're fine. We don't see things in the same light and love as the light workers do, but we still see light and love. Where we do love, but we do fight as well, because we fight for what we believe in, we fight for what is right, we fight for what we love. And fighting can be necessary. Not saying that like fighting in the terms of like, oh, we're gonna go to war and have bloodshed. That's not what I mean. But it is our love that drives us to fight if need be. And even if many will not admit it, there are monsters that are pure evil, and sometimes it takes fire to fight fire, which is where our inner glow and fire comes from. It takes fire to fight fire. And that is where we come in. We have no issues with standing between what we believe is right and the true darkness that threatens us all. We are the ones who will bear blood to protect not only our way of life, but those of others as well. All light workers I've met don't like the idea of battle and war, and want to teach about love so that no one will ever fight again. And that's a very amazing thing. But sometimes a shadow worker is needed to fight those battles that don't want to be fought. Waving our swords and screaming out our battle cries in a way that others don't want to have to fight. We are different, and we will not ever be as bright as the light beings, but we shine in our own beautiful ways. We have always known extreme hardships and pain, abusive childhoods, being bullied very badly, treated as if we don't exist, etc. She was molested and abused as a child. She can talk about that more in hers, but she has very bad PTSD, and she used her pain to help others, and she has a group as a result of that to help her help other women heal from that, and find their own peace. And we use our pain to propel us to fight harder for those who cannot or don't know how yet. We are not saying that light workers have never had hardships, because they have, and that's why they are light workers. But we're just explaining it from a personal experience and how it is in the world for us, so that you may understand. We feel on a deeper level. We embrace our pains and our shadows. We learn to control and use our demons rather than falling victim to them like most people in the darker realm are perceived to be. We control our demons and our dark. We don't let it control us. We use our darkness to heal the broken and protect the innocent, so that they don't ever have to get lost to it. We are primal. Primal is wild, and wild is chaotic, and chaotic is many times seen as something that is bad, when it's not always so. It forces change. Chaos forces change and creates a new balance, because in order for there to be newness, to have balance, to have creation, you have to have chaos in the beginning. And in order to make a bad thing go away, you have to have chaos to make it end. But that's just kind of how I see it. But I will edit this video. Hopefully this won't go on for too long. It'll probably be like a 30-minute long video. I hope you guys will watch it. But anyways, thank you so very much for tuning in. I'm hoping that I'll be able to do another video soon about hopefully a lighter subject. Haha. But thank you very much. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I would like to hear. I like to debate. I don't like to be bullied or to be told that my point of views are wrong, because I won't ever tell you your point of views are wrong. I'm all about balance and seeing everybody's side, walking in other people's shoes. So I will not tolerate any bullying, any harassment, telling people that they're wrong, because you don't know what life they lived. You don't get to tell them they are wrong. You can't invalidate them just because how you feel. That's why they're feelings. Their opinions and feelings, and they are our own. We can't tell somebody they are wrong for feeling their own feelings. But anyways, thank you so much. Hannah and Lay, have a very beautiful day. Bye.